therapeutic community pod. Did that for about 10 years and just had different jobs. But I think this is where I need to be, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Good evening, I'm Kenny Stanford, or Kenny Stanford. Sometimes I have a hard time saying that, just in recovery. I am the vice on Firm Foundation. Zach and I met years ago. God had given me the vision probably 18 years ago, and so in meeting Zach, the things was just reunited. I am also a member of Bethel AME Church. I'm one of the associate pastors there. I've been there for 31 years, and I happen to be a person in recovery. In fact, the 27th of this month, I'll be celebrating 31 years clean. And so there is a certain thing in me that has a servitude that I owe God tremendously, a debt that I can never repay back. And so I just have a passion of giving back. I sponsor people in the country and out of the country. God has taken me all over.
My name is Brad. My last name is Owens. I'm Olivia's dad. I'm a proud dad of a 14-year-old daughter. I'm a Sussex County kid. I grew up in Lewis, Delaware, but I live in Wilmington now. I've lived in Wilmington for about 12 years now. I actually cut my teeth as a professional inside of prison at 20 years old. I spent about 15 years of my life in and out of prison, working in TC communities, working in sex offender treatment programs, working in all types of areas of the correctional healthcare system, including reentry, towards the later part of my career. Right now, I'm actually the new director of the Delaware Prescription Settlement Opioid Settlement Distribution Commission. It's a long word. We're actually trying to shorten it a bit. Delaware Opioid Settlement Commission. That's new, actually. We're rebranding, new logo. You can see all that on our website soon. But I'm the director of the Opioid Commission for short. Yeah, that's why I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Shayla Reddick. I'm from Aquilla, Delaware. I came to the field during COVID as a volunteer, actually, and just kind of helping homeless people suffering from mental health, substance abuse across the state of Delaware, Newcastle County, Sussex County, and Kent. And I've just kind of found a home at Aquilla, and I'm on their leadership team, and I've just been working there with compassion and honesty, and with the hopes to make our community better and serve the community as a whole. I'm here because Zach Bibb has inspired me to be here. He's been, I'd say, kind of like a mentor for me a little bit too, being young in the field, and trying to find my footwork and where I really fit in and just trying to make a difference. So I'm appreciative for the opportunity, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. State Senator Eric Buxton, but more importantly, Eric Buxton, lifelong Kent County resident. I lived the life experiences that many of you have lived, maybe not walking the streets addicted, but as a family member of somebody who's walked the streets addicted, right? As an educator for 30 years with young folks that I've seen go through those struggles and reach out. So I'm deeply passionate about this space. I said when I got elected, when they asked me what my key focal points, education and addiction. That's really what it is for me. We can have homelessness, we can have mental health, we can have all that, and yes, they're all connected. But I need to stay focused on addiction and what Delaware is and is not doing in this state when it comes to that. So that's where you'll hear me lock into a space, and I respect the others, but I stay locked in that space. Forgive me for being late. I was at an event right down the street, but I prioritized myself in getting here. It's a big event. I am a Republican state senator. One of the biggest events we host is this weekend tonight. But addiction, just like God, doesn't require political affiliation, right? It requires action, and so that's what I'm here for, right? It meant that much to get here. I look at opportunities like this as parts and little continuous pieces that we can connect together that eventually make change. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got here late too. I saw you running.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Hans Fleurmont. I am just a humble servant and proud father and husband. I do work in the field of treatment. I'm currently a counselor at Aquila, Delaware. I have the pleasure of serving those who are, the less fortunate of our community, those who are homeless, those who are dealing with addiction head on and trauma as well. So I'm just glad to be here. I won't be saying much, but thank you for having me.
Amen.
I like the one mic thing. It helps. Last time it was a little, we were back and forth. So we're gonna jump right into the questions. We're on a timetable, and we are prayed in center, so we're covered in prayer. You missed that, but we're definitely prayed in. We want God to lead. So we're gonna start. I think with reentry. I think we're gonna start, and we're gonna direct the questions at one person because they've identified in that area. But once they answer, feel free to grab the mic and speak on it if you like. We are on a time limit. I know some people are leaving early and we have an event tonight, so we're gonna hit you early, Senator, with the second question. So the first question that's in front of you, you guys all have the questions in front of you. It says, why do those living in Delaware prisons experience the highest rate of overdose death than any other population? So those leaving prisons, even with all the treatment available, those that are in prison incarcerated and stationary, when they leave incarceration, they overdose at the highest documented rate, and that number really hasn't changed in the last 8 to 10 years. It's been pretty stable. If somebody wants to contradict that statement, they can, but I'm going to give it to Brad because I know he spent a lot of time in the prisons.
Thank you, Zach. So the reentry population is certainly one of the most high-risk populations for overdose when they come out. The highest risk population is actually the homeless, unhoused, and mentally ill. But oftentimes reentry isn't extended to that. Nevertheless, the reentry population is one of the highest risks of overdose. In fact, in the latest data we have, I think it's 2021, right? And I have some stats here, so I can back this up and sound credible. But of the 515 deaths back in 2021, 148 deaths were reviewed, right? Of those who were reviewed, 47% died within a year. Hold on, let me make sure I'm correct here. Of those deaths that were reviewed, about 150 of them, 38% were incarcerated previously within a 2-year period. 38%. So about 40% of those coming out were those who overdosed and died were incarcerated previously within 2 years, right? Of those incarcerated less than a year, 26% died within 3 months. So a huge portion of folks who are coming out of prison, or let's say jail, because if they're serving less than 3 months, it's a jail. They're either pre-sentence or serving a really short time, meaning they've been on the street recently, right? And are likely someone who went in, going through withdrawal, and are cycling through that jail system, right? Huge high-risk population. Those same folks are the ones with mental health and housing issues as well, right? So it's a huge need for us to ensure that us being the DOC healthcare contractors, and the community, it's not just a DOC issue, it's a community issue, right? They're overdosing in the community when they come out. It's not to say overdose and death doesn't happen inside the drug, because it does. If you know anything about the drugs right now, the withdrawal symptoms in our hospitals and in our jails are extremely complex, and they do cause death. I think we all know that to be true. Nevertheless, we need to ensure that jail population has sufficient reentry services, if you will. That means contact inside the facilities and immediate contact outside the facility. But I will say that the DOC is not new to this, and they're not lame to this issue either. In fact, they have implemented a lot of things, including in-reach coordinators with OUD background, specifically OUD case managers, as they would call them. If you are arrested and incarcerated in jail, and if someone going through withdrawal or have addiction or identifies using substances, someone should be there to interview you immediately at booking and receiving, right? And be able to connect you to a doctor or, whatever immediate resources you might need, and at least someone there who's asking questions. Where'd you come from? Where might you be going if you get out tomorrow, right? What's going on in your situation? Do you currently take medications? Do you not take medications? Do you need medications, etc.? So there is a level of engagement, right, in the jails, right, in booking and receiving, but it's not perfect. And there's oftentimes, in fact, there's policies that require anyone who is in a drug treatment program, is on MAT services, they get a referral on their way out. Now, does the individual show up to the referral appointment? That's where things get lost often. But referrals are made from the inside as well. And DOC has contractors to pick people up right at the door. Do they pick everyone up at the door? No, it's impossible. The revolving door, especially in Gander Hill and Wilmington, is hard to keep up with. Nevertheless, there are resources there, but I'm not saying they're perfect, nor am I saying it's enough. I just want to educate folks so that you know there are folks who are accountable for this, including the DOC, who has policies and contractors like the healthcare provider, Vital Corp, for example, is responsible for the medical care of people coming into facilities who, either going through withdrawal or identify as someone who needs treatment, right? And then they're responsible for making referrals for as many as they can, ideally everyone, for when they get out. There's contractors who are held accountable to those outside services as well. Again, they provide the numbers. They're not required to get everyone, but they do try. And then where are they sending them to? How are they getting there? That's that next level reentry. Who are they going to? Is it an inpatient treatment program? Is it a recovery house? Is it an outpatient treatment program? Is it one of the FSAR certified houses? Is it an Oxford house, etc.? What groups are they engaging with, right? It's a complex thing, but nevertheless, the reentry population continues to be a high-risk population and a priority for the Opioid Commission. If you see anything about our grant opportunities, we focus on, or we'll give you bonus points, if you will, if you're addressing the reentry population. And as long as the data supports it, we will continue to emphasize that point.
I know that's a complex question. We're just going to try to keep the answer short just because of time. So does anybody else have an answer for that? Does anybody else want to speak on why they think that people coming out of prison die at a higher rate than any other population?
I think it just boils down to unmet needs is one of the biggest factors in relapse. And people coming out of prison, if they don't have housing, they don't have a job, they don't have a way to make an income, that depression sets in, and relapses happen. So I think things like what we're doing with our discipleship houses, trying to help with those needs, and whatever it is, it might be a ride to the job, it might be even creating work, through our different businesses that we try to operate to help guys who go to the interview, get the job, but when the background check comes in, they don't get the call back.
Right.
And so I think the more needs that can be met to help people get over that hump, the more success they have and a sense of belonging. And as a graduate of SCI myself, in 1990, a long time.
You're dating yourself now.
I'm telling how old I am, but I was very fortunate and blessed that I was able to go with a family member that took me in, who knew a family member that gave me a job, helped me get a car, and just I thank God for that, and I think about guys coming out that don't have that or have burned all those bridges, and just how hard it is to break that cycle.
Thank you. You got something?
Yeah, just briefly, inadequate and unstable housing continues to be the biggest indicator in overdose deaths across the board, and it's the only number that hasn't shifted. And so we are working to support recovery residences in accepting of DOC incarcerated folks. There's actually an organization that's opening reentry specific recovery residences in Delaware. And it's important for us as the certifying body that we continue to work with DOC. We've met with the judges to ensure that proper placement is happening and proper care coordination is available and congruent from incarceration to a certified recovery residence.
And Bob?
I'm gonna be quick.
Yeah, sure.
Rather quick to the point. It's real simple for me. When I speak to folks, it's identification and transportation. Right? We've got to get the individuals getting released fully identified with credentials. Because when they leave and they're released, there's no transportation, there's no communication, they fail. It's something as simple as business of sales. When you let somebody leave, you could potentially lose them. And that's what we're doing. We have an individual that successfully made it through, has earned their right to leave the incarcerated space they're in. We have got to get their credential. Kiosk inside of a prison will go a long ways, similar to what they have at DMV. Something I brought up at the last JFC meeting. It's a small move, but it's a big move in that space.
Okay. We're kind of covering both questions, like what to do too, so we can.
I just wanted to add to that. With Wayspring, we try to educate our clients on the different resources. One of the great resources is the Friendship House. They help people get their birth certificate, their IDs. But the issue is that it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get an appointment. You have to call, and some of my members don't have a phone. And if you miss the call, then you have to wait another 3 weeks. So I think we need more places like that that can support our community members that need to get those IDs, because I know quite a few people that could have had a job but couldn't because they didn't have the ID.
So before we move on, I'll just, from my personal experience, I was in addiction, and if I would have got let out and not court mandated through tax supervision to a long-term state-run facility called Gateway Foundation 15 years ago, I'd probably be dead. Because I was court mandated, and I had no say-so on where I was going. You know, there was now the way it's set up in the court system, it's a lot more of outpatient counseling, treatment, stuff like that. And they're not really addressing the addiction or getting educated on the spiritual problem of addiction. It's deeper than the symptom of drug use. It's deeper than housing. It's deeper than a job. It's something that they have no control over. And unless you have an experience like peer-to-peer and you have a community around you, you may never know what you suffer from. Because if one thing isn't true, that what we have, increasing the resources that haven't worked so far, it may help a little bit. But increasing spiritual resources and the peer-to-peer stuff, I think that is a ground to invest in. I don't know if it's just me. So we really don't have to tackle the other question, what to do, unless someone had another solution in mind they wanted to talk about for reentry. Reentry is a difficult, multifaceted topic. I can only assess what is available and what isn't available. H&I goes into the prison systems. They've been going in for a long time for Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. But there are other programs like Firm Foundation, other Christian programs. There's a lot of programs that want to go in and serve, but they're not necessarily welcomed in to that space, like the R2R program and stuff like that. We have them. They're there. They're stationary. We know when their discharge date is, you know. But I don't know if we're getting the spiritual resources to them as much as the physical resources of medication and counseling and housing. So we'll move on to Senator Buxton with this second question or second targeted question. What is the state and local government doing to address, and this is a wide subject, so you can attack it any way you want. What is the state and local government doing to address the substance addiction crisis in our state?
I think there's a lot of good people that are trying to do a lot of good things, but the challenge is we've got to separate what looks good on paper from reality. That's the biggest mistake that I see us making. A lot of things that we get enamored with on paper, that when you go out and do performance audits aren't really happening. And it's not because there's not a lot of good people. It's a big space. It's not a funding problem anymore. I think Bradley over here has been a excellent addition to the way we're managing the opioid settlement funds and that extra funds. But prior to that and separate from that, we're still spending about $200 million a year in this space. But it goes back to how effective are we? When we get enamored with data that says that, you know, overdose deaths are down and we celebrate that, we walk right past the fact that overdose are up and the lack of treatment in our state remains stagnant. But we chase something that we can celebrate that helps me as a politician to celebrate something, a good thing. But what it doesn't do is help the families and those folks that are still out there. And that's what we got to do a better job of. So you asked me the question, what is the state and local government doing to address substance addiction crisis in our state? We have a lot of good people spending money, trying to put a dent in this thing. I do think we're in a better space when it comes to the Opioid Settlement Commission and how we're applying the grants. But we really got to get after what is it? What's the acute phase of a person's life when they're captured on the street with addiction? Some of you have lived in the first 24 to 7 days, 24 hours to 7 days. What's the next 30 to 40 days look like that the state has to offer? And then what's the 12 months post that? And how much of it is a voluntary space for folks that are connected with families that can help them? And how much of it is a state's role that has an effective, not jail sentence, but a commitment sentence that says you're going to go through this and you're not going to have an option to bouncing it out? Because what's behind that are family members that are pleading for that space to be recognized, the space that captures a loved one. So that's where I think we are in the state. There's a lot of weeds we can get into, but that's just my overall impression.
Can I speak to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Senator. What does the state and local government do? The state does a lot, right? You got a complex system with the Department of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, Public Health, Department of Education, the DOC. Each one of those entities is doing lots of different things. DCM puts out tens of millions of dollars a year for treatment and recovery services across the state. But I want to speak to the local governments and use this opportunity to highlight what the Opioid Commission is doing with the local governments starting this year. As a part of the settlement agreement, local governments were entitled to a seat at the table, if you will. There are 10 local governments in Delaware who signed on to the opioid settlement agreement with the state of Delaware, which means that now those 10 eligible subdivisions or local governments, from Wilmington down to Seaford, including the counties, Middletown, Smyrna, etc. Dover. They are, due to the new local government grant program that the Opioid Commission is starting this year, those 10 eligible subdivisions are set to receive money each year for the next 12 years. They can receive that money directly to go towards efforts to abate the opioid epidemic, or they can identify third-party organizations, nonprofit organizations, etc., to delegate that money to. We just launched the program now. Actually, Friday, we launched the application and we're sharing it with the local government leaders. Now, again, they can apply for the funds themselves and use it internally for things like EMS services or ride-along services. You often see the behavioral health specialists riding along with police or EMS. Those are funded through local governments often, and we would fund things like that. Or locals can use the money for identifying third parties and letting you do your thing, right? Whoever that third party might be. So if you're interested in how to get involved in the local government grant program, talk to your local leaders. Know who those 10 organizations are. I can share them with you and talk to the leaders and see what they're doing with the money. Ask them what they're doing with the money. Now they're deciding what they do. City of Dover, for example, had
a little further away.
City of Dover had a roundtable commission to take recommendations, right? They're going to send me and the commission a list of organizations they want to fund. A lot of other local jurisdictions are doing the same. So that's just one example of what local governments can do and will be doing now and for the next 12 years with about $30 million total going to them.
Thank you. Anybody? Okay.
Yeah. I will probably end up touching on both of these questions, just so you're aware. I think what the state and local governments have been doing well is they really work to diversify the services that are available. And I say that understanding that there's services that go unfunded or unacknowledged, such as faith-based. The state I know the state wants to do more to support faith-based services. There's difficulties in that around the RFP process and procurement processes, which has to be handled legislatively. And I look to you, Senator Buxton. Delaware has difficulties around the RFP process and procurement because of the Delaware code, honestly, right? Like, we can't advertise them out of state. We can't get services. We can't advertise them at all, actually, which makes it difficult for other nonprofits who may not be aware of how to find state grants or state contracts, and that's a small change that could happen, right? Like allowing for advertisement of an RFP. Also, we like to pay attention to the opioid settlement funds, but there are a vast variety of funds available, whether it's through SAMHSA, HUD, or DSAM. And in comparison, the abatement funds are just a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's $16-ish million a year. There's triple that coming in different ways, right? And so the lack of education around money that comes in, that is something the state can do better. And around how we advertise our RFPs and procurement.
Do you mind if I say?
Oh, yes, sir.
Sorry. So, I will speak to my personal perspective and what I've seen dealing in working in the treatment field as a clinical, as part of the clinical team. I've noticed and I've actually experienced a bias or unwritten policies. Like if you speak too much about Jesus, right? It's like it's the staff look at you in a certain way. And the men and women who are in treatment, they're actually more open to those conversations, but then you get singled out by your peers. And then, it's like I said, it's unwritten policy where they actually end up attacking you for it. For example, I was recently had to leave a job, and I heard rumors, people saying I got fired because I said Jesus too much. And I was like, I didn't even know I got fired. I thought I left, So it was interesting because it shows that there's a mentality there where faith-based programs are shunned to a degree. Not everywhere, but to a degree it is. And when it comes to receiving funds, I've noticed that it's more difficult for faith-based organizations to operate in the realm of treatment and to be able to, bring in the God part of things. Because honestly, the strategy that I've seen that worked the best, in my perspective, is the 12 steps. Because, and the reason I say this is housing is important. Vital records are important. All of those things are important, but they don't necessarily help people at the root of the problem. They deal with the, what do I say? They deal with not the determining factor, which is usually a deeper rooted, hidden enemy that we fight. And just getting someone their ID doesn't necessarily help them deal with the long-term trauma that they've been carrying for 20 some odd years, especially when they're leaving prisons. And they've been traumatized in the prison system. Now they leave and have to start life over again. And they're not getting the actual support that they need when it comes to dealing with those deeply rooted issues, which it's not a short-term problem. Yeah. It's a long-term problem, and it needs a long-term solution. So that's kind of what I've noticed. I've noticed that when men and women get honest about the identity crisis that they face, or the lack of purpose in their life, when they get honest about not being able to talk to their mothers or their fathers because they've been abused as children, and they've been left for dead in some cases. When they start talking about these things and when they start connecting with people who have a heart for these things, and it comes from the Christian community. That's what I've seen. I don't see a lot of Qurans in treatment. I do see people who are Muslims come in treatment, but I see very few Muslims actually going into treatment and then trying to help people in those spaces. I see Christian men and women doing that the most. And I see those are the people who really care and want to really talk about the real issues. So that's it.
Thank you. So what the state does really well is manage symptoms. I mean, they do it great. I mean, because that's what they understand. I mean, that's their approach. And it's not really been effective in our state. Like the senator said, overdose rates are down. That's great. Treatment centers are busier than ever, you know, and treatment centers are a business and a for-profit business, and it's profitable. With the way the system is set up to keep the door open when you need to come back. I've seen people in treatment centers 10 times. I thought they were staff, you know, and I don't know how the pay works. Some people to this day don't know how those treatment pay system works with DSAM and stuff like that. That's not my concern. My concern is that everything be available equally, like Samson says. Like when I have a conversation with my brother Andrew, and I say, yo man, I call him up, I'm like, what about the spiritual discrimination? What about when someone expresses a desire for something that's not documented? What about when someone wants a 12-step book or a Bible and they're told, no, you can't have that, but if they want medication, what do you need? You know, and that's not an unbiased thing. That is a real thing that's happening in Delaware, a real thing. And then you have treatment centers that aren't long enough, and what's happening in housing is they have to do the job of long-term treatment because we don't have it. And then everyone's at everybody's throat about issues that are symptom issues versus how come we don't have the level of care that we need, long-term, quality housing, you know, a good community, because we're too busy worried about the symptoms instead of getting to the root.
I just wanted to expound a little bit on when you talked about long-term treatment. When I started in the field, in the prison system, the key program was 6 months, a year, I think up to 18 months, maybe 2 years.
18 months.
And then all of a sudden, it went down to 3 months. I don't really understand that, you know, that process, because when you're in treatment, you can fake the funk for 3 months, and we would never, ever get to the root of your problems. And 3 months you leave and you really didn't work on anything. So I think that the long-term treatment really needs to come back.
Sure.
What you said 1,000 times is exactly what I said to Chief Justice Sykes on the JFC. We lack, and that's what I articulated on, okay? And we have to be clear. Nothing that I advocate doesn't exclude someone else's position, because it's a totality of things, right? But that long-term treatment model that we have walked away from is part of the why that you see when folks are leaving too soon to reclaim their lives that was out of control when they left, and it's still out of control because we refuse to give them the effective treatment that they need. And the problem we have right now is that we don't have long-term effective treatment, whether by choice or without choice. We farm it out. And I'm hoping that the Opioid Commission sees that, because what I see many times, what I saw before Bradley got here, I used to describe it, I see little birthday candles that burn bright until they don't, right? And that's what you do with grants. They burn bright, they look good on paper, they run out, and they're gone. And once you say 12 years from now, what are we going to be left with when the money runs out? And that's what I'm banking on with the Opioid Commission under Bradley's leadership, is that we have the stuff left that is a framework for success.
Thank you. Quick? Yeah, go ahead. we got about 5 more questions, but we're on time.
Hans, I agree with you. It's definitely a spiritual battle. And Zach, to your point, and just even with the short-term treatment that we have now, we're sending people into a short-term treatment program addicted to an illegal substance, and they're medicating them and sending them back out, and still addicted to a legal substance. And I think that that's something that the state and really needs to look at. The 12 steps, as Hans shared, is how I got sober, Zach got sober. Anybody I know that's really in recovery uses those steps. And it's not using a pill to fix my problem. And so, I just wanted to add that.
No problem. All right, so we're gonna move on unless anybody has anything. And I believe the next question is for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. How are addiction treatment is varied, inpatient, outpatient, methadone clinics, all the way through residential. And Delaware has all kinds of levels. Andrew knows 3.1, and they get confusing.
Yeah.
But the time level and what's offered isn't confusing. So that's what treatment means on this question. How are addiction treatment settings in Delaware treating addiction and connecting men and women to recovery programming inside the treatment settings? You notice the difference in the wording? It's key to us. We don't lump them together. We don't say treatment and recovery services. So I'll read it again for you. And if you have any questions on the question before you answer, I just want to make sure you understand it. How are addiction treatment settings in Delaware treating addiction and connecting men and women to recovery programming while they're inside treatment settings? You got it. You got it.
Oh, man. It's a big question because there's lots of different answers.
There you go.
I can speak a little bit about Aquila. For those that don't know, we have 2 3.1s, 5 sober living homes, 2 different levels of those sober living homes, outpatient, also with IOP. So
Outpatient counseling.
outpatient counseling, yep. And treating addiction. Gosh, Zach. It's a multitude of different things, social determinants, really like creating opportunities for these people that we're serving, whether that's through employment, education, connecting them to outside resources, community referrals, creating a base for them, networking. That's huge. You hear that all the time, having a network, people that you can lean on to support you. But I think within Aquila, one of the biggest things that we do is we really go in with compassion. Sorry. We go in with compassion, compassionate mindset, and just hearing our clients out, knowing what they're really looking for, because it does take a team, and collaborating on those ideas together is huge. Connecting them to resources with our clinicians, our case management team, handling things like birth certificate, ID, social security card, getting them prepared for when they do leave us and they are in the community so that they do have the best opportunities available. In regards to recovery programming inside the treatment setting, bringing in literature, whether that's NA or AA, Bibles, Qurans, making sure that it's available to them, educating them. I think that's something that we lack a lot on, is educating them on what is expected of them when they come in the door, having an understanding of what really they should be accomplishing while in treatment, so they can set themselves up for success. And also educating them from the side of, with DSAM and our government and how everything kind of works and how we all support each other, because we can't do it alone. Collaborating with other organizations, like I said, to just really create a space where there's multiple opportunities for these people.
So you do have meetings that come in, right? 12-step meetings,
Yeah, we have
programming,
12-step.
structure, you got a schedule, right? They state a
We have
schedule?
spiritual study, we have a structured schedule, instituting things like having certain roles within the community as our facility, and I'm speaking on our residential, and things like that, yeah. Would you do that?
Thank you. And, you want to
Yeah, sure.
grab that?
Well, first off, I'll say that the government and DSAM, they do very well funding the treatment centers.
Yes, they do.
They do extremely well funding. The treatment centers, I would say they're at like the forefront, really, of the battle because the majority of people that are, that come for help, they're going to the treatment centers. And that's, in the treatment centers, that's where they're getting connected to recovery resources. That's what I've seen. Now, the government can't control what the treatment centers does with the funds that they're given. They do very well with the oversight because there's a lot of paperwork involved when it comes to receiving funds for the people that go in. I have noticed that recovery resources are readily available in a good portion of treatment centers. I think that over the years, I really just started working in this field. I started volunteering about 3 years ago, and that really opened my eyes to things. And I just started, I think last year, being in the clinical side as a counselor. So I've gotten to see a few different perspectives, which changed my perception on things. And it's opened my eyes to all the funding that's literally being put into this problem that we're all trying to combat, in one way or another. So I see the partnership that's going on with treatment and recovery. And I do see that there is a camaraderie there, just to a certain degree. But I also see that there are different philosophies that kind of, they butt heads, which obviously it's something that you can't really not have. When two ideologies meet and they disagree, there's going to be situations and instances where, things get heated, I would say, for lack of a better word. I tell my clients that recovery really takes place once they leave treatment. It starts there, like a lot of the men and women, they're preparing to take action. That's that's the stage of change that they're in. When they come, they're contemplating and then they start preparing to really fight the real fight. Because what treatment does, it separates them from the drugs, from the illegal drugs, I would say. But then it also allows them they use other medications, which kind of doesn't always help in most cases. Some cases it does, but people can abuse those medications just as easily as they can the illegal substances. Treatment is there to prepare them for the real fight, what happens after they leave. I work at Aquila with Shay, and their structure is really, really great, and they do a really good job at taking care of the basic needs of their clientele when they come in. If they need vital records, if they need housing, if they need things. And I always ask myself the question, we throw a lot of money at the problem, but is the problem being solved? And that's the question I continuously ask myself. Are we really solving the problem? Because we can throw money at it all day long, but, are we, is the numbers going down? It's kind of like sometimes when I see it, it's like like a drop in the bucket. The people that are being helped in treatment, it's great. But then like 90% of the people that come to treatment, they're still falling by the wayside. There are many fallen soldiers in this fight. And so, I do think that we should kind of reconsider the strategy or the strategies that we're using to combat the real issues, to see maybe we can have a greater dent in the overdose death and the people that's actually, dealing with this. I'll say one last thing. The hardest thing is when the people come to treatment, they are well experienced in life. And it's like they're coming almost at the end of things, when I think we should really focus on preventive measures, where you can stop the problem before it even becomes a problem. So that's my take.
Thank you. So real quick, the treatment question. And when I was in treatment a long time ago, you knew what you suffered from. You knew, you got educated on disease, that it was a spiritual problem, unseen problem, and it came out in your behavior, right? Now, when you put people in treatment, there's no structure. Like, if I got somebody for 5 days, they should at least have a morning meeting, evening meeting. There should be some consistent schedule. And there's no oversight from the government on this, by the way. And the government accredits, the state of Delaware accredits these institutions and puts the state of Delaware accreditation on the plaque, right? I could go into a treatment center and it could be different every day. That's chaos. When there's a consistent schedule, we're looking for order. We're looking for direction. We're looking for help when we go in there. And people that have been through long-term facilities, Andrew, people that have been in long-term care, they can tell you that when they got up in the morning, they knew what to expect in that facility, right? If they're honest. They knew what was going to be provided for them for structure, and it was monotonous, it was redundant, it was repetitive, because we have to have that structure, and there has to be some government oversight. If you can fund anything, but if there's no order, there's no structure, and there's no people with lived experience in there, you can have all the educated people in the world. Education philosophies change, but how we're designed as people, physically, mentally, and spiritually, never changes. Our fundamental needs never change. I know for a fact that when the state and DSAM and the federal government gets on board with what we can do physically in the time period we have them, and implement some kind of structure with recovery programming in the structure, principle-based programming, you would see a tremendous change in one level of care, detox, handing off to 30-day treatment, handing off to a 90-day facility, and then somewhere like Aquila where they have housing to follow. Then they learn this structure as they go through. They learn this new way of life. Even if they bucket the seed is planted, subconsciously they're learning those principles as they're going through the programming. But right now in the state of Delaware, and I'm not speaking hypothesis, I serve in every treatment center in the state of Delaware and within 100 miles. And I can tell you some have structure, some don't, and there's no government or state oversight on that level of care. On the structure of the facility, they have to have certain clinical hours and certain peer hours, and what's considered a peer has even changed. So it's scary when it comes to what's considered treatment and what's recovery programming. It's very frightening from somebody that is a program guy and believes in programming and recovery to go into facilities and people don't really have the structure and the help that they need, and they're able to do whatever they basically want. They can not go to group if they don't want to. And I would ask the state, like, what's the state doing about that? They got played with, they don't even have to go to the groups. And as far as like your calling card of pain, your rap sheet, your medications you've been on, if you only have someone for 30 days, she comes in my facility. I'm a counselor. I got her for 30 days. And I barely get to look and see what she has. And I'm behind the desk and I got to submit all this paperwork. It's hard for the counselors and the clinicians. I love them. It's almost impossible for case managers to place these people. And Andrew, people at this table know, a case manager to put people in the next level of care is probably the most difficult job in the world in treatment. So why wouldn't you want the recovery community that's already immersed in the next steps? Why wouldn't you want their help? Why wouldn't you want to have structure so it could organically help you, so you could focus on identifying that person's addiction, their root causes, versus just treating them and passing them through, It's scary, man. It's real scary.
They're coming right back.
They're coming right back. Because the addiction never gets addressed.
Let me tell you from my perspective, the reason that happens is because you're relying on a government that's relying on the ability to check boxes, to spend a lot of money, right?
A lot of money.
Separated from the opioid commission. Let's stay focused on what we do right now in DSAM and others. And I've stated this to them. We're good at checking boxes. We're good at presenting a portfolio that says, no, we're doing good things. But it is exactly what you said. You don't see the proof of the results. And if we do, where are they? It's exactly what you said. There's no accountability, right? It's exactly what you said when it's involuntarily commitment. It's an ineffective program. The only way it gets fixed, if you all decide that you want to rise up enough in a collective voice and tell us that we're getting it wrong. But what I do see, and I'm going to call you out for this, not you in the room, but maybe those listening, it's a protected group, right? You talk about the need to transfer one drug for an illegal drug. Why is that? Because that's where the money is, right? Everyone else's program doesn't work, but mine does, right? I'm telling you right now, if you want this to change, you got to get outside this room, get in the room down there at the General Assembly and demand change. You got to come in and say, 3 months is not enough. You walked away from a great program. You are right, right? I've said it to them. They don't listen to me. I'm one guy. I'm one guy in the minority, right? I can scream all day. I'm a cheerleader for this, but that's the best I got to. You fine folks, get together organized.
You're talking to them right now.
And you're not afraid to call out those who are good people, but their programs are ineffective, right? That has to be done. My friends, I left the event to come here. I haven't gone. I left there, skipped dinner to come here. Just got a text from my wife, the program started, which I have to be there because I'm going to be called up. So
We love you, man. Appreciate you coming.
God bless all of you for coming. Right? God is good. That's the purpose for being here, and I mean that. I want to be a facilitator of anything that you want presented, right? And if I can help, right? And I hope I put it. Maybe a positive charge in the group listening. That you're the change makers. You're the change makers.
We'll be in Dover in May.
But
The whole state will be down there.
Come in organized. Come in organized. Meet with your group. Have an honest conversation amongst yourselves about what it is that is and isn't working, and then be bold. The money's not going to be the problem. We have the money. We're blowing the money. That's the promise. In the annual money, right? But thank you for my time.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you so much. And I do think this guy's getting it right.
Yeah, I like it. It's all right.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We talk about oversight, and I can't speak to treatment because I'm not in treatment. But one of the greatest things I believe that Delaware has done is they put national standards in Delaware Code for recovery residences. And that's what we do, right? I don't know what licensure does. I don't know what their division does, but I know what we do. And we audit thoroughly every recovery residence in Delaware that applies for certification.
Do you think that's a valid point, though? Like, what's required past just the hours? I know you know what's required hourly. Don't you think there should be some kind of recovery oversight inside treatment centers? Like, should they just be allowed to, I know I'm asking you a question off the cuff. Should they just be allowed to treat people the way they want with no oversight, with no commission that knows what recovery versus treatment is?
I'm struggling to speak to what the licensure programs do because I don't, right? I've worked on that side of state service, and I've taken the calls from people, and I know the loop that we get stuck in that case, and it's too complex for that question.
Okay.
Right? But I do know that FASAR, right, operates at this standard, and we provide the standard for recovery residences in Delaware per code. In addition to other services that we provide for our certified recovery residences. And I think that's a great thing that Delaware did, right? DSAM wrote it along with Carrie Harris and the community to identify how do we enforce and protect people in recovery residences.
Well, NAR was born out of Florida. Florida had a huge problem, right?
NAR was born before Florida.
But it really got going in Florida?
A lot of what we see now in the newer standards was driven out of what was happening in Florida, yes.
Yeah, it was a mess in Florida, so in case they don't know. It was a mess in Florida. People were making money off of recovery.
Yeah. And we see the same, it's starting to happen in Delaware.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful for you, and we talk all the time. Even if we don't see eye to eye on something, it doesn't matter. We keep talking because it's needed, and we're brothers no matter what.
I know you're going to move on.
Yeah, sure.
So I think it's awesome that we have different opinions, but we can have a very intelligent conversation. and still like each other, hopefully. But I wanted to talk about the structure. I believe the structure is extremely important. When I worked for the TC at Gander Hill and Chester State Prison, they had a 30-30 and 30 program. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So it's 30 minutes of reviewed material, 30 minutes of new material, and then the last 30 minutes, they did role play. And a lot of people thought that was silly, but it showed that they understood what we were talking about. And we had, I think, 8 pods in Chester Prison. If you walked into any pod at the same time, they were all doing the same thing. And if you weren't, you got in trouble. So structure, I think, is really important when it comes to treatment.
So this last question, we kind of hit on it. It says, before we get to Brother Kenny, it says, how can addiction settings improve their programming to educate their clients on substance addiction and recovery principles? Substance addiction, I think, gets overlooked. It's generational, sometimes intergenerational. I will come through, if Hector Garcia fell, we're praying for him, he's well, but he couldn't make it tonight. Hector actually trained my counselor, Dave Williams, at Gateway Foundation, and Dave Williams was a man in recovery in behavior science, because we can talk, but our behavior never lies. And family origins counseling, which is basically your father, your mother, your brothers, your siblings, is not taught in treatment anymore. Family dynamics, scapegoat, hero child, lost child, these survival behaviors is not taught anymore in 30-day periods because it's so short. I don't think it should be taught in 30-day settings, and I know it's probably ineffective, but for someone that had a 90-day program, it's indispensable. Because then it takes the shame and the guilt off of you, and you start to gain an understanding and allow self-forgiveness. If you think you're the problem and you got to get yourself out of the problem, your addiction will beat you over the head. And there's a lot of people that have opinions on treatment and medication and stuff, but they've never dealt with addiction. Even in their own family, they lost someone. They may be under the addiction that has nothing to do with substance. They may be stuck in a pattern of thinking, behaving, and acting, and attitudes that are detrimental to their spiritual condition. So I think having some basic programming back in and mandated by the state would be very effective. This question is going to be pointed towards Pastor Kenny. It says, how are churches in Delaware, it's a general question, he can attack it from the angle he wants, how are churches in Delaware supporting individuals, families, and communities impacted by substance addiction?
First of all, I want to thank everyone for their input during the preceding questions. But this question, here, I want to read something to you guys, all right? Matthew 25:35 starts with this. It says, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, meaning Christ, saying, the Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothed in you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, surely I say to you, and as much as you did it to one of the least of these, my brother, you did it unto me. One way that I know that most of the NA and AA meetings actually takes place in churches. There are meetings set up. Some churches offer other avenues to get people involved. Me being in recovery, know this is a spiritual condition. We can try to vote addiction out, it won't happen.
Don't care.
All right? In the NA literature, it actually said we can be beaten, prayed over, and even threatened, but we will not stop until we want to stop. Now, how do we be there in that moment of desperation to know that this is a spiritual thing that we are battling, and be there for the answer? in a way that's an unconditional love. I've listened around this table, and me being in recovery still, making meetings. I told you guys I'm coming up on 31 years, but I've been in recovery 34 years. So the last time I used, I had 22 months clean and relapsed. And it was one of my sponsee brothers that said, Kenny, there's something different about you. You've got to let me take you to the people that can help you the most. And he wasn't shunning anyone in NA. He actually helped me walking back into the church. All right? I believe in what Hans said, that one of the things that 12-Step Fellowship does is guide you in reconciling your broken relationship with God. It is not only, Hans, only on a Christian standpoint, though, because I have many sponsorship in my family who, what I mean by that, we call each other family within it. And they practice a different religion. And one of the things that we know is to respect someone else's religion and their love for that, because we just want the brokenness healed. So I think the church can help in a way that we don't beat people over the head with scripture either. That it is the love that is shown in any facet, in any treatment center. And what you do, the love that is shown will draw people in, because it becomes magnetic to them. Because I believe that even when we're out there using, we're searching for love. We are searching for it. It is just broken. And how do I get back to this stage in birthing my authentic self, right? Well, I have to go through the courses of what you said, recognizing when whatever happened, in the traumas of life, in the hardships of life, and how do I deal with that? Well, many times within recovery in the field, we have someone that will walk with you side by side. I give my number out, and I still tell people you can call me anytime. It's only 2 times. My phone's been buzzing now and texting, but there's only 2 times that I don't answer. When I'm in the pulpit, when I'm in a meeting, but I return all of my calls, because that's what was done for me. It didn't matter whether it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, someone was answering the phone, you know? And so what I see that the churches can continually do is to be open. You know, we look at sometimes the churches are shut down and the doors are locked, right? Then perhaps we need to have emergency phone numbers available. One of the things that we practice at Bethel is we have a 7 o'clock service. And we used to call them something else, but now we know to call them our 7 o'clock worship service, right? That is not different from downstairs, and this service actually takes place in the basement. And when I'm down there, I tell them, well, if you know about housing, everything starts with the basement, the firm foundation. If you don't have a firm foundation, everything comes crumbling down. That's everything, even in recovery. You can get housing, you can get a job, you can get the wife back, the husband back, the kids look intact, but if your foundation is ruined, you're headed to crumble again, right? And so sometimes what I see is that we set folks up thinking that, all right, this brokenness can be resolved in a 30-minute, in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. No, I'm telling you, I still make meetings today, 31 years clean. Right? It used to be said, Reverend Stanford goes to the meetings to help them people. I had to pull my lead pastor aside. I said, no, Reverend Stanford goes there to help, that they give me help so that I could wind up back here and in place what God would have me to do. You know what I mean? I still write on steps today. I guide other people through the step work, right? Because in that, we find that there is a deeper element. We used to say, using drugs is only 10% of the problem. How do I address the other 90%? Right? And so addressing the other 90% is a careful surgical procedure that takes place that God actually reels us in slowly, right? Because addiction is deeper than a chemical-based substance, way deeper, right? And so what I look at is that, again, servitude and getting someone in a position that it's not all about me. I'm telling you what happened for me was being of service, and somehow God took care of me. Being available, God took care of me. And I'm always speaking, I say I owe a tremendous, right? Here's a bit of personal. 22 assault charges, 2 attempted murder charges, that's when I got caught, when I came in recovery. All right? The Lord changed my life completely around. If I don't tell people that I'm in recovery, there's no seemingly residue of it. But I know it's still there, right? And so with the church being in place and loving people, one of the battles that the church has is it's the most segregated time, Sunday morning.
Thank God. Talk to me.
This thing don't care whether you black, white, Spanish, none of that. Its mission is to kill us, right? And so I see even the churches have to come together in a fashion that we see past all of that negativity, right? And come together in a fashion. If all of us clap right now, we will not be on the exact same beat, but we all will be clapping. And what I mean about that is that we all will be praising. Because when we look even at our lives, sitting around this table, God has brought us through some difficult times, right? And there's a sense that when I'm saying the church is a building, right? But this is the temple of God. And God birthed each and every one of us with this temple. And so how do I give back in a way that heals my community, that loves my community, that shows I'm available for my community? So I gotta open the doors. And I don't mean open the doors of a house, but open the doors of my heart. That if you don't smell good, I can hug you, regardless of that, right? If you got snot running, I can hug you, regardless of that, right? If you don't look like me, I can hug you, regardless of that. And that's where I think the churches will play a dynamic part. Not only that, I wish the senator was here, because there are many facets that, we don't mix church and state. Well, no, the disease of addiction doesn't care about that. It will cross that line. So why can't we cross that line, right? Because it's going to take all of us. None of us have the 100% right answer. God has us sitting around this table that you bring your gift, you bring your gift, you bring your gift, and we all put our gifts in here, right? Scripture says, right? One plants, one water, we trust God for the increase. That's my answer.
So I've had a unique experience with Journey Church. The lead outreach pastor, Brother Steve, he's not here. He married me and my wife, and I thought he was strange when I met him, but it turns out I had some strangeness God was healing in me, and we are family, me and him. And through his leadership, the Journey has many arms that go into the outreach into the community, and one of them is recovery. We just left 4th Street in Wilmington. 6 or 7 people from my home group, Strength and Recovery, that was started at that church over 10 years ago. We were out canvassing. Brother Kenny was with us a couple months ago. We go once a month, and it's a model for other churches. And they have a feeding ministry, so they feed the people physically, and we go out and collect those that society would say were outcasts or unhelpable or drug dealers or drug users. And we go out and build connections with families in those communities, and we be available for those communities. And I agree with Pastor Kenny that when the church is available in us and through us, the impossible becomes possible. So I know that we're going to continue to do that. The churches that we're connected to, I can name them, probably 30 or 40 churches, and you know who they are. Grace Church in Seaford is one of them. There's many churches that you don't see collaborating together because we're one church, and I'm excited about what's going to happen. Can I answer about the church? Or the next question?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I've been reading ahead too, so I can start jump right into the question.
Read the question. Yeah, read the question. Read the question.
You know, with the church aspect, for many years I worshiped God in my own understanding. The steps taught me, but it wasn't until I, found out that I was just playing God when I was trying to mold God to be what I understood. And when I finally surrendered and gave my life to Christ, that things got better. Things truly got better. So the question about housing is the next step here. It says, how have recovery homes in Delaware become more connected to addiction treatment and state funding? And the homes that we operate, we don't deal with treatment per se. We have guidelines and rules that we follow, curfew, that kind of thing. And we also don't get any state funding for our program. But from what I know about other programs that get state funding and are more connected to treatment, the 3.1s and such, from what I do know and have experienced and heard about, is that there's a lot of legal medication going on that they're trying to prescribe people out of addiction. And we tried that when we opened up. We thought, well, we'll give people a 30-day or 60-day or 90-day window to transition from Suboxone or methadone or and other maintenance, MATs, medically assisted treatment. And what we found was that they would go to the counselors or to the doctors or to the maintenance facility, and they would say, hey, I need to get off this, and they would be talked out of it. In many cases, they would give them a higher dose. And, it's not freedom. And, we had to struggle with that for a while.
How long?
Probably about 6 months or so. We tried to transition people off, but what happened organically was when the people that were on MATs relapsed. The MATs weren't working. They were relapsing and going back to treatment. And so, we finally stopped accepting people on MATs, and what we found was that they were able to come back and have more success, getting off of the daily regimens that the treatment centers were providing.
How long you been open now?
2 years.
How many guys?
Almost 2 years.
How many guys have came into your program and left in recovery off those maintenance drugs in their own place? 10 or 12 guys out of the guys?
At least, yeah. I think we're up to about 14 residents that have transitioned to their own space.
Wow.
Independence. And, it's two to four every month that we're, helping to get established in that place. So it's awesome to see those turnarounds. And, what can Delaware do to increase the number of recovery homes that operate in recovery principles and faith and the program of recovery? I think that speaks to what we're trying to do as far as abstinence. I know there's recovery homes that get funding for even, medical marijuana. There's like, you can come here and smoke pot. Like, I'm like, that's not recovery.
Correct.
And it's like, it's being pushed on people who are struggling with addiction. It's like, you can't prescribe somebody out of addiction. It is a spiritual battle. And 12 steps, I shared with Zach one time, if you know, doing the 12 steps will lead you to Jesus if you do them, you know, and that's where the healing comes. And it took me a long time to get there, but I really believe that. So having a faith-based recovery home is what we are. We require church, we require Bible study, we also require 12 steps, meetings and sponsorship and, you know, those things. So I really believe that takes it to a better accountability. Like, you know, people can fool me, fool you, but we're not fooling God. So when we get to the heart of the matter and we realize that everything we do we're judged on, and you know that somebody's watching what we're doing with the doors when the doors close. You know, we're not getting away with anything, and people get that level of accountability and build that relationship. And it's not, you know, that you're going to be condemned. It's, you know, you feel this love, and what we do in our house is, like, we've got a guy now who has been trying to get a birth certificate for like 6 months. He's from New York. He sent his information back in like July, maybe August. They're now just processing applications, you know, that there's 6 or 8 months backlog. So he can't get an ID and get a job. He volunteers, he does other things, he does what he can do without being able to get a job. So it's just, you know, providing those needs, the transportation issue. You know, we have old vehicles people have donated to us that are falling apart that, you know, they run, and you know, we help people get to work. We help provide jobs for them, you know, through, you know, our businesses that we're operating. So I think the faith aspect is huge, and I think that, you know, there's much higher level of success when we're answering to a higher authority, and I think that answers it for me.
I know Andrew's going to want to speak about it, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We fellowship with another recovery house in Northeast Maryland. Trish and Bob, they're not here. Trish was on the last panel, and we absolutely love, and I'd like to give the praise report that Trish's male and female house is almost completely full, and they're getting referrals daily, and God is really moving in that place. From almost closing the women's house a couple years ago, where they had 2 women's houses, and women are difficult, as you know, difficult task in early recovery and treatment, especially in treatment. So I just want to thank, because I don't know if you said it, you have a women's house as well.
Yeah.
Praise God. Two men's and a women's house, and if you had 20 houses, it would be full, right?
Yeah, we get calls every day, and that's the hard part, is telling them we have a waiting list, and it is.
So we did post something, it was like a hot topic online about recovery housing, and what I see in recovery housing is it's difficult the last 10 years. It's really difficult when the level of care gets shortened for addiction. Funding increases, outpatient counseling in the IOP, PHP model, OP model from Florida comes up here, and it really shortens the level of care and puts this unimaginable pressure on recovery housing to expand and to be used as treatment, basically, or where case management moves into these houses, and not all recovery houses, but a lot of recovery houses that people have to go to because they don't have a place to go. They don't have the means to pay for a recovery house like an Oxford House model or independently peer-run model. And they have to go to these places where they are in these places, and if they want to go somewhere else, there's really not an option for them because they can't go, you know? So those places we partner with, all of them. So when I say we partner with the foundation, everywhere we serve, we're basically doing the case management job. We go in and we talk to them, and we assess where they're at, medication, not medication, what their desires are as someone in recovery. And we recommend Impact Life, CCD, Aquila, Fisherman. We're not biased in any way, because I've been on methadone, I've been on Suboxone. I'm not speaking from theory. I've been on these medications. If someone is not ready, they're not ready, and that's okay. And there's places for them to go. But when someone expresses the desire
for an abstinence-based house. When I say abstinence, I'm not talking about the Fazar standard or whatever. I'm talking about no narcotics that would show up on a urinalysis, whether they're prescribed or not, because my addiction in the literature says my body makes no difference. I got an allergy. If I put something in my body reacts, and I can't turn it off till divine intervention happens. So when this divine intervention happens, someone expresses a desire to go to a house that they don't have to be involved in that at all. Those houses should be readily available. They should be readily available, just like every other house. Because 99% of the housing in our state, there is medication available, and the person has to encounter that, even if they don't want to be involved in that, to have a place to stay. And for someone that comes from an era when Oxford House and other housing was abstinence-based with no medication even 9, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I think Lyman House changed where they integrated medication. This is not something that's been around from the beginning of time. This approach to addiction treatment is relatively new, and the long-term effects haven't been documented. So I'm just looking at it from a recovery perspective. And I know a lot of people have different opinions on housing, but housing wasn't always like this. So we should have true abstinence-based housing available that agrees with recovery literature. When I say recovery literature, AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, Christian 12-step literature, that abstinence from all drugs is a requirement for recovery. I didn't say it. Millions of recovering people live by it. So that's what I know. In the state, there's over 150,000 people in 12-step recovery that are abstinent. And if we don't speak up, if we don't make it available for the newcomer, it is going to be dangerous for our children and our children's children. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I like how you just handed me the mic because I just know.
It was coming.
I appreciate the work that you're doing. I would love to certify your recovery houses as well and work with you and support you. And I'm going to, right? I have to because we did this on Facebook, but I have to correct the misinformation that our recovery residences are not abstinence-based, and all of our recovery residences are abstinence-based, period. To say that specific medications are not part of an abstinence-based program is misinformation. That's not just my opinion. That is the national standard, that is the Delaware standard. We have, just to also say, you had mentioned that 99% of Delaware recovery houses accept medications, MAT. I can't speak for all of them, I can speak for our certified houses, and there is 8 of 45 that do not. And their programs are abstinence-based programs that have certain medication requirements because of their ability to navigate medications. I don't know that percentage. Somebody smarter than me can figure out what 8 of 45 is.
It's lower than 99.
It's lower than 99. Right, and so to say that these don't exist is misinformation, and I apologize for that. SAMHSA, right, we're talking about SAMHSA and the federal government. SAMHSA only recognizes NAR and Oxford as being the only evidence-based standard for recovery housing in the nation. That's a big deal. Oxford has an amazing model. I love their model. NAR has a great model. I love our model. Programs like yours fit into our model, right? In Delaware, certification, anyone who's not certified, other than you because we just met, they must be doing something wrong because it is free. We provide technical assistance to get certified. We now have started a scholarship program to address social determinants of need for anybody in a certified recovery residence, period. Right? There is no reason to not get certified if you're operating at an ethical standard. Yes, we have difficulties when a recovery residence starts to dictate somebody's medication when they're in the house. Right? When you accept a person, you accept them as they are when they're coming in the door. So to then say, hey, we believe you need to do A.
But when you say that, you mean as long as it's laid out what their policy is in the beginning, you're fine with that. Either way, right?
Typically.
Right,
so I was on medication when I came into the recovery, and I still participate in medication, because when I don't take medication, I want to drive my car into a wall, right? And that's my reality. 2 years ago, I came off my medication and I started having consistent thoughts of driving my car into a wall. So I went back on medication. I recently had a conversation with a big book thumper, who's also my father, right? About why it is important that I take these certain medications because of that. The 12 steps have relieved me of a lot of things, but it didn't do that, right? So it is not the place of a recovery residence to solely dictate what medication is good for somebody, what is it. It is to work collaboratively with treatment providers and outpatient providers to find what is best for the person, what the person wants. Something, I want to circle back to faith-based, and it incorporates into this. I've traveled to other states and I've worked with their affiliates as well. And something that Delaware is lacking that I've seen work great in Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio, is the faith-based and recovery housing community come together and open houses. You've done it. To my knowledge, you're one of the only ones who have truly been able to incorporate faith-based services in recovery housing together. And I applaud you for it. But I have seen in other states churches open recovery houses. I have seen them actually, right? Like, and I agree, right? Like, I have a spiritual malady, I have a spiritual problem, but I'm not going to be able to solve that homeless. I need a house, right? I went through.
Then we ask a guy who wants to get sponsored, get out of treatment, like, yo, we got to get you somewhere safe.
Right.
Get you somewhere safe first.
I went to a long-term recovery residence in Delaware. I'm not from here, right? And like, thank God I did, because I was crazy. You think this is crazy? And I was crazy. Those people are saints who did that. And I respect the people who put up with the craziness until I got a spiritual solution. So that is one thing that I think the faith community and the recovery community can actually come together and deliver on, is actually open a house. I would love to see a church open a recovery residence. It would be amazing. I don't know. Do I have anything else? I mean, I probably do. Yes, please.
You did good.
Good job.
Thank you. The church I go to, actually, the parsonage is one of the recovery houses.
Yeah, it's on the church
It's on the
property.
church property. And
Yours is.
They're very,
One of them.
yeah, we
great.
rent the house from the church. It's
Let me
their
start by
parsonage. It'd be great. I don't know what's involved with it, but we'll get together later on that. But there is something else I think is really unique to what we do with our recovery house that I haven't heard in any other model, but I think it's one of the main reasons we're having the success. People move into independence. We charge $125 a week. We're probably the cheapest house in the state. And $25 a week we set aside as a credit for the resident for when they get through a year. They have about $1,200 for a security deposit, or first month's rent, or even if they want to buy something. And that money, they only get that money for housing. So they're not going to get a check just to leave and go do whatever with. So it's really helped our residents, get to the next step. And just kind of a unique thing. If they relapse and they don't get it, it's only used for housing. It's only used if you move up into your own position. So I think it's a pretty unique and neat idea, and I'm sharing that because I hope other recovery houses will implement something like that.
That's all. So I'm a person that I believe that individuals should have the right to recover how they want to recover. I don't knock anybody. I don't encourage them. I don't, But I think we just need to meet people where they're at. And if you had 100 people that say they wanted to do their treatment without any type of spirituality, you give that to them. If you have 50 people in that same location that want that in 12-step, then what do? Just push them to the side? I think we should learn how to incorporate both. And I think that would be more of an approach, giving people an opportunity and freedom to recover how they want to recover.
I love it.
Okay, I'll go first. You sure?
You got it, man.
I love you.
I love it too.
I don't think I knew what I needed coming in recovery. I tried that. I asked the guy to sponsor me, then I told him how to sponsor me. That didn't work out too well. You know? So part of it is getting beat up enough that the humility comes out, that you can say, hey, listen, I really need some help. I'm messing my life up. I consistently make bad decisions. You know? I'm loving what you're saying, you know? I'm also convicted, and this is because I'm a real estate investor. Zach and them know I own a lot of houses. And I put it on the table about us even opening up housing. You know, it's the timing that's needed to have that construction there or being there to govern it that is ran right, you know. I think that I would love to sit down. I would love, because I've never been down. Zach always told me about the Fishermen.
March, talking about the retreat in March.
But it's always, that's when I have my men's spiritual retreat too, that I'm committed to. But I'm gonna have to find a way to go ahead and venture out, because this is a passion of mine. It doesn't turn off, you know? And to collaborate in a way, because I've also heard that y'all have land and we're looking for land, right? And so that we could come together and everybody put their piece of the puzzle into play. I'm really trying to hold back from, you know, just praising God for this moment of bringing us together in this kind of fashion. I can feel it.
That's a good segue. I got a piece to the puzzle. As I taken on this role as the director of the Opioid Commission, we launched the third round of grants last year. Learned a lot since doing that, including this rule that we have, right? We can't use state dollars for recovery houses unless they're certified by FSAR. It's a new law they put in place. It's a good law. It holds recovery houses accountable. It provides structure and resources, which is another incentive to become certified by FSAR, which does not discriminate against faith-based programming, as Andrew just said. But you're not going to get our money without being FSAR certified. We weren't quite clear on that. I wasn't quite clear on that as I launched a third round of grants and decided on grantees, for funding. But I learned it now, and I'm okay with standing by it. I mean, it's the law. But what I'm sharing to you all, as you consider becoming certified by FSAR, if you have a recovery home, I encourage you to do so, and you become an eligible applicant for opioid settlement funds.
Which opens in 3 to 6 months. Unofficially, I have no idea. I just say things.
All right. Does anybody else have anything on that recovery housing? I'm going to get into a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and we have a prevention program that has been in different schools, and we have someone from our affiliate or partner organization that helps out and does a lot in the community, Delaware Council on Gambling Problems, that does a tremendous job inside the high schools and middle schools, and it's a passion of ours. And last year we went and had prevention month is October. Right. Yeah, so we had a little summit, and we were looking around the state at active prevention programs, not prevention of overdose, but actually educating our youth about the developmental factors of addiction, not just the symptoms like drug use and how bad drugs are, but environments, attitudes on drugs, society's attitudes on drugs, poverty, families' attitudes on drugs. A lot of the developmental factors that drive generational addiction are never really talked about or addressed in the classroom. We've got to go in and hold up our cell phone and they'd be like, what's addiction? And they're talking about drugs. I said, can you be addicted to this? And I hold up the cell phone. I know John probably loves this. And they're like, I don't know. But they all got a cell phone, in middle school and high school and the video games. So Delaware Council on Gambling Problems does a tremendous job with that. But Ms. Denise is going to help spearhead our prevention summit that will be yearly, and we encourage that there's some stuff happening in June down in Dover
for some prevention stuff that just popped up on the radar. We didn't see it at all last year. So I'll let her speak to this question, and anybody else can chime in. It's how, where am I at?
What is the-
what is the current state of substance addiction prevention programming in Delaware?
Well, I think it's lacking. When my kids were in school, when I was in school a couple of years ago, we had prevention programs, and we learned about what substance abuse was at an early age. And I don't see too many schools that have these prevention programs anymore. Like Zach said, Fern Foundation has a prevention program for young adults, and we even tried to offer it for free. And schools are just not willing to carve out time in the curriculum for these prevention programs. And I think it's really important that we start at an early age to educate our children. So that's my answer to that.
Does anybody else have anything on prevention? Anybody? I'll take it.
I think that trying to prevent the problem before it becomes a problem is always a great solution. And I think a clear strategy for prevention is definitely needed. More strategies. One thing that I like about the 12 steps is that it's a strategy that's been around for a long time and it's principle based. That's what I think makes the big difference. And what it does is it forces a person to go through a process of personal discovery and to discover more about their behaviors, more about their mindset, their ideas that they hold dear that are probably not based on truth. And it forces them to look at themselves in the mirror and see reality for what it is. I think we need more of those. Hello? Hello? Okay. I think we need more of those type of programming, those types of solutions. Because I think, and you know, the 12 steps isn't the only strategy of taking people through a process of personal discovery, but it was what men and women, I guess, in, you know, Christian men and women decided to put together by the grace of God. And it's what's been, they've been using it for, how long? Hello? Yeah. For, like hundreds of years, or 100 years?
Almost.
87? Close to 100.
We won't round up. I want to critique it more.
Well, it's been there for even, past that, right? Because the Bible focuses on giving us or allowing us to go through that process too, of renewing our mindset. Recovery is definitely a theme that you will find, or healing, in the scriptures. And it's something that it's not just a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing, obviously. Most importantly, a mental thing, even an emotional thing that we all need. And I think that if we can get, the young adults to go through that process of discovering who they are early on in life, it will probably alleviate a lot of issues that they would most likely suffer from later on. If they were able to go through that process and understand who they are, why they're here, what they can do, where they're from and where they're going, I think, we're setting them up for success rather than setting them up for failure, which many times the people I talk to, and even including myself, we start using drugs early in life or using alcohol early in life. Like before you hit 13, 14, I've talked to people, like, when's the first time you had alcohol? I was like 9 years old. I'm like, my goodness, This is adult, these are adult activities that children are just jumping into, even sex, It's like is it all right if I just talk?
Pass it down. I'll hold on to it for you.
I think the prevention aspect of things is way more powerful than we think it is, or that we don't necessarily focus too much on that. I think the school systems, they do a good job with teaching us academics, but I think we fail when it comes to developing character, developing morals, developing mindset, strategic thinking, analytical thinking, stuff like that, critical thinking skills. The school systems fail when it comes to that. And I'm talking about like the K through 12. Once you get to college, they start to touch on it. But we should be doing that as soon as, the child can speak. They need to figure out who they are. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be a steward of the world? Because that's what we are all called to be. One thing that I see China does, they develop their kids very well, like early on with their ideologies, but they spend an extraordinary amount of energy, like developing their kids, where I think it's a part that we've kind of fallen short at, I think, as a nation.
Absolutely.
So that's it.
So, Hans' gift is teaching, by the way. So the prevention program that we've developed, an hour-long prevention program, and it's targeted towards middle-aged school kids. I know I've paid attention to the opioid abatement grant. I don't want to give percentages, but I've seen very few prevention programs that are targeted towards middle-aged school kids that were funded through that program. I believe it's probably the most underfunded in our state, not for the lack of funding available, but for the lack of curriculum and people willing to teach that curriculum and opportunities to go in and reach the youth, whether it be in schools, whether it be in after-school programs, whether it be in the community, to get those kids in a location where you can teach that program from a lived experience point of view. And we do have peer certifications where people need 500 hours. And if we brought this up at the roundtable, but if we do have a developmental prevention program that does have a curriculum that anyone that's had an experience in that classroom with those feelings, those emotions, and that their addiction had them in at an early age can rapidly, get on their level, those kids' level. I've taught the class, and we're going to record it at Knollwood Community Center. So Knollwood Community Center is one of our community partners, and we're going to film and record the prevention program, which is targeted towards really 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade, but most funding in the state of Delaware and many states is prevention is 13 to 18. And by 13, like Hans said, I was already in active addiction. And we're already pretty much developed as a pattern of behavior that we're gonna need treatment, counseling for. So we have a 13 to 18-year-old program. That's our peer program that we developed. And it's a 6-week class that we developed through the opioid abatement money, secondhand through Roberto Clemente Little League. And we're gonna record that at Knollwood Community Center. So we can pass that along, and it's content that people can access and use. So, is this?
That answered my question.
Anybody else got anything on that? So this brings us to the end. Where are we at on time? Everybody's checking their phone. Everybody must have hot dates.
8:50.
We're almost there, right? So we're doing good on time. All right. So
Just talk fast.
So this was about addiction treatment program. Hector is not here. How has addiction treatment program changed in the last 10 years? I don't know, Andrew, how long have you been clean now? 7 years. So he came in Lyman House right around that time. Who else been clean long? Kenny didn't go through a treatment program. He got clean. When did you get clean, Frank?
1990. I went to University of Delaware City.
Okay, University, me too. Me too. So there was a lot. So the industry standard, a long time, it takes about 90 days of abstinence. And when I say abstinence, I'm not talking about other medications. I'm talking about mental health medication. I'm not talking about other medications. I'm talking about narcotics. When I say abstinence for this, it takes about 90 days off narcotics for your brain to function adequately. Where you like, when you learn, hey, play the tape through, sit in the feeling, it'll pass. Tell yourself you're valuable. These core things that we learn in treatment takes about that long before your cognition or your thinking, you can actually process that. Now, if you poll the region on how long treatment centers are, most of them, a lot of them, I'd say 75% or more, are less than 90 days. And if you equate it, are there prescription narcotics involved, that number drops tremendously. So what the industry standard was 10 years ago was 90 days plus. There were facilities that were court mandated inside the wall and outside the wall that you had to go or you were going back to prison, and that you were going to be abstinent and learn how to process your feelings, your emotions, how to operate in a group setting. Your behavior would come out and it would identify your exact nature or the cause and effect of your survival behavior that leads you to substance and exacerbates your addiction. Your addiction is why you use. Well, we don't have that in the state of Delaware. We don't have that in the region, the Northeast region. We don't have it to a large degree. There are some places you can go long-term and get that separation. Do they actually get to the root cause? Are they more faith-based institutions? You'd have to look at that. But that is a huge problem when it comes to addiction treatment. The length of care does not meet the brain science that has been an industry standard long before the financial gain or the methods that we use today. The human body hasn't changed, but the approach to addiction treatment has definitely changed.
Do you know what's changed? Like why things change so drastically?
Money influences a lot of things in treatment.
Insurance won't cover more than 90
Correct.
days. Yeah. We struggle with it at Aquila all the time. And we fight for our clients.
So does Bowling Green. Bowling Green fights and they get extended, but even with the extension, it most of the time does not equate to that person getting 90 days of protection from their self or their self-will and their addiction.
We've had incidents where we've gone to, like, you'll do the review, you fight it, it'll go to a peer-to-peer, and then you actually have to speak with the doctor, and the doctor gets on the phone and goes, they don't meet criteria, so we're denying. That's the conversation.
And there's another factor in treatment that 12-step recovery used to be the industry standard 20 years ago. The industry standard. Abstinence, I'll get roasted for this, but you can look it up. It was the industry standard. Get off everything, stop using everything. You couldn't even smoke cigarettes down Gateway. You know what I mean? Get off everything and learn how to process your feelings, right? But in the last 15 to 20 years, we've went away from that model, and it's very rare that you find that model because, oh, you're discriminating. You know it's discrimination when the insurance company won't pay for a 12-step group. That's discrimination. When the insurance company says, oh, it's a 12-step group, you can't call it a 12-step group. That's dishonesty. That goes against our first principle. But these a lot of treatment settings have to lie to get the funding, and that's a motive issue. That's a heart issue. And that's teaching clients how to lie and manipulate. We learn through what we see as people. When you're a kid, you learn by what you see, what you experience. Your whole perception of God is how you're treated. But now you're going to a treatment setting and they can't have integrity because they won't get paid. And it's very disheartening for people that go in, and I know that some techs have to administer medications, and they're supposed to be teaching me about recovery, and they got to administer my medication. I'm like, well, you're sending him a powerful message. Like when I get the intake, and the first thing they do is give me a medical assessment, make me see the doctor. They don't introduce me to the community. They don't introduce me to the family. They don't introduce me to recovery. They don't give me a recovery literature. They give me a doctor, and they give me medication. Now, if I'm a client, the first thing I'm going to think is, well, that's my solution. You know, and that's just how we are wired as people, because that's what you're showing me. It's dangerous. I know there's disagreements at the table, but for me, as a behavior science guy and a spiritual discernment guy, the example that we set and what we see and what we're walked through, like Kenny said, what someone walks us through that we're looking to for help, and it's powerful, man. Just like recovery, when someone walks you through recovery, they're a living example for you. They're not perfect, but they're a living example for you. It's tough in treatment centers, man. It's tough. It's a tough job. It's a tough business, and it's really tough with the messaging that's out there and the limitations with money and insurance.
I think it's important. Listen, when I was in treatment, when I was in inpatient treatment, I was there for 30 days, and then I did an additional 60 days at that rehab. When I was there, right, 7-ish years ago, you didn't leave on a medication for opioid dependency. They didn't do that, right? They would help you taper, they would help you get off, like, by the time you left their program, you were off of it. It was their model, right? This was in Maryland. But even 7 years ago, we have to acknowledge that the substances we used are not the same substances on the street. I used heroin. I used tar heroin.
There was heroin 7 years ago?
In Colorado, there still was.
There was still.
Right? So I got my test, I got all the things, and it was just meth. Well, not just meth and heroin. No fentanyl, right? No methamphetamine, no xylazine, right? And so while yes, that's how I got sober. That's how I stay sober. We also have to recognize that the landscape is different. And it's important that we acknowledge that and incorporate the voices of people who are a year sober, 18 months sober, in that, who, I don't know what it's like to be addicted to fentanyl. I don't know what it's like to have wounds that are untreatable other than going to fire, whatever it was in Delco, right? The Crozier Hospital.
Closed it down.
Right. Crozier had a fire unit, and they were like the best treatment for xylazine.
Yeah, burning.
I mean, I don't know what that's like. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, well, we got to do. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. But I can't do that because I don't know what people are going through anymore. It has changed so much since I got sober. I didn't have to worry about overdose. I didn't know what Narcan was until I got on the East Coast. Because people didn't happen like it does now.
And I'm in total agreement with you. That's why we have the program that's the Door to Recovery. We have lived experience. Marcia, that we met in the hospital, OD. Marcia's a home group member. She was on methadone, got cut. Her methadone got cut. She was a home group member, went through step work 3 times before she got off. She didn't change her clean date. She's had a desire to stop the whole time. Paulie, we met him in Banyan. Paulie got his kids back. Just called me yesterday. He prayed for his kids back. He got out, got in CCD. He got on the Supplicate shot because he had a desire to. He took 2 Supplicate shots. It ain't for everybody, but when they get a desire, we should foster that desire and throw gasoline on it and have the resources for them, just like we do for the fear of how strong the drugs is. We do a poor job in this state to work together. Absolutely. There's this camp and there's this camp, but we're not listening to the voices of recovery. Like you said, we got to listen to the people that have went to the treatment centers, utilized them, utilized the recovery supports, and now are living a life of freedom, because freedom is available for everyone.
We intentionally have a board position within FASAR of somebody who's currently living in a recovery residence so that we maintain that voice and that pulse on what it's like to live in a recovery residence.
So I wanted to know, when someone goes into treatment, because it's been a long time since I've been in treatment or worked in treatment, do they get educated on like a treatment plan when they start their MAT? What are the side effects of it, long-term use? Because I asked that question because I met someone who was on, I think, heroin for 6 months and got off and was, I guess, on methadone. And I met him 10 years later. And so he had no teeth in his mouth. I thought he had a long history of using heroin. I found out it was 6 months, but he was still on methadone. So are individuals being educated on the side effects of these MATs?
I was when I went on an MAT, but I was also 6 days sober. So who knows what I'm retaining, right? It's important that we continue conversations through the whole process.
I think there's misinformation being spread about it. I do. You know, we have clients that come through that like do have the desire to come off, and they struggle with the organizations that prescribe to come off their medications, which is crazy because you should be there to assist them on both. I want to be on it and I want to be off of it. You know, like.
To Andrew's point, there's another brother, right? We can see the compulsion on a person. Brother Kenny we've been around this thing, the spiritual thing, for a while. I'm going on 15 years this year. Recovery saved 9 years, thank God. But you can feel the compulsion. This brother, he's around us and he feels obligated to get off medication. And we sponsor. I had a conversation with Pastor Kenny, 4 or 5 years ago? And I said, I'm not sponsoring guys on medication. And he, like he does, real gently pulled me aside. He said, who the hell are you? He said, your job is to introduce them to God. God's job is to free them. And since then, I've been sponsoring men. And by the time I get to the 3rd step with most men, they're telling me they got to get off because we're loving on them, right? But this brother was serving with us. And I'm getting off. And I said, I put him in touch with the people that I know that have walked off, which are few, that have walked off the treatment programs with God's help and community recovery. I said, you need to talk to these people. I said, I cold turkeyed on the infirmary floor in Gander Hill, and this is the best thing that ever happened to me. But I don't think he wants to cold turkey, because you can't cold turkey in Gander Hill anymore. But because they won't let you. But he walked off and he had the obsession. He was doing it. I gotta get off, I get off. As soon as he got off, he was already in relapse mode with women before he got off. So as soon as he got off, he drank and used. He got off MAT. Was he ready? Absolutely not. Did the doctor determine if he was ready? No. Did the doctor assess that? No. We can assess it as a spiritual community. We can offer the maintenance community. We can offer the people that specialize and do that well. We can offer them a set of eyes that they just don't have. And we can help the client or the individual. If we don't do that, people are going to continue to die whether we increase medication or not. So we, like the whole spirit of tonight, we have to work together in this area.
It kind of goes back to what Kenny was saying earlier about he said, I didn't know what I needed. You know what I mean? And that's why you come to these treatment facilities, because you put your faith and your trust into those individuals to lead you in a path that is going to help you find recovery. So.
Goes back to the integrity. So we're going to end with the last question.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
your wife is tapping the watch and she's got me scared.
I just try to help them.
I get it. Like, listen.
I'm only allowed to have 5 minutes. At our dinner, you heard her, I get 5 minutes to talk.
5 minutes, you're done.
You're done.
Andrew definitely got a hot date. So this is the biggest. It's not the largest portion of funding, but it's going to be what, 260 million all told that Delaware gets. What is it? What's the number?
No, it's a little over 200 million that Delaware will get in opioid settlement funds over the next 12 years.
Wow.
We don't have 200 million. We have about between 60 and 70. It changes every day. We're putting money out and we're getting settlement dollars in on a structured period of time over the next 12 years.
I've been praying for you consistently, lady. It's a tough job you have, and we appreciate you. I saw it's on our table, the last round of opioid money, where it went. I saw the SARS, the money they got and what they're going to use it for. Just what was written out and what they're getting it for, and I know your background in accounting practices and accountability. I have the utmost faith that they're going to spend it on what they said they're going to spend it on. But we've had some talks about separating the language of the grant of treatment and recovery resources when we smack them together.
Yeah.
I don't have any other problem with anything you've done as far as your position, but that wording, when we lump them together, I think is, once again, it's misleading and it limits what people can get funding for. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to read the question to you. That's just my only concern for the sake of time. It says, how does the Opioid Abatement Commission of Delaware determine where funding dollars are distributed in our state from that fund?
Yeah, well, we fund treatment programs and we fund recovery programs. I don't know how else to say it. Treatment and recovery programs, treatment programs and recovery programs. We do both. We provide funding for prevention programs. While we were talking about prevention programs, I did a little count. There's 14 on this list that do prevention. There are 63 total. That comes to about 23%. So about a quarter of the grants that we do fund are prevention, right? The other 75 go towards housing programs, treatment programs, even recovery support programs for
Prevention of what, though? That would be my question. Like, is it prevent overdose or is it
For
prevention?
example, we funded Roberto Clemente Baseball League to do prevention program, and they turned around and hired your organization to do it, right? So I trust that whatever program you're running with the Little League baseball team and folks who need it are good, right? And y'all provided the data and the evidence and the feedback to suggest as such. That's one example of a prevention program that we're funding. But there's lots of different examples. In terms of application, I want to take the time to educate the folks on what we're doing right now. I mentioned the local government grant program, which is coming out right now. And it'll continue to come out towards local governments for the next 12 years, as I mentioned. But that's for local governments to decide, our local leaders to decide on how that money is spent. And that's only 15% of our money. The other 85% is going to go out via competitive grant cycles, right? We have one every year. We just, as you pointed out, you have round 3 in front of you. Round 4 is coming out later this year, round 5, round 6, all the way through until we don't have any money about 12 years from now. We estimate about $15 million going out every year for the next 12 years. And organizations like yourself and others who we've talked about all night long will have an opportunity to get funds. Aquila is a grantee of ours. Their salaries might be paid for by opioid commission dollars, and that's a good thing, right? The same goes for FASAR, right? He mentioned a client support program. For anybody who's in a FASAR certified recovery house, an individual who's in that house, they have access now to support dollars for work clothes, food, anything, social determinants of health, right? Lots of different things we're funding. Pay attention to the application that's coming out later this summer. We are on sort of a rebuild, a rebrand. We're launching a new website in a few months. a place where you can go and fully understand how our grants are being distributed, how we're holding folks accountable, and what we plan to do in the future. So we don't have the time to talk about the application process and how we score them, but I'd be glad to have that conversation with anybody. That's my job and my duty, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that tonight with you and your followers.
Amen. So I have one question. I know that somebody is granted, we've discussed this before individually, that they're more likely, if they're successful with that money, to get granted again. To the senator's point, who's not here, do you put any long-term, like I know Longwood Foundation, they don't want to sustain. They want to see self-sustainability. They'll do initiatives, and Longwood Foundation is probably the largest in our region. That's one of the largest.
Sustainability.
So if someone displays the ability to sustain, like what we do, we believe in the seventh tradition to be totally community sustained by people that believe in recovery, and that's one of our philosophies as a board. Now, if we demonstrate the ability to do that, we've written on the grant on every round except one. We've written 2 or 3 rounds, written 4 different grants, and we didn't get any of them, and that's okay. But if we display, and we've already displayed the ability to be self-sustaining and not the grant reliant, does that increase your odds to grant someone?
We have questions related to sustainability on our grant application. They're factored into the overall score and evaluation of a grantee,
and fishermen. I mean, they're self-sustaining.
Amongst with other factors, right? There's going to be more losers, if you will, than winners when it comes to opioid abatement money, because you got a long list of applicants. Over 120 applicants applied for funds asking $100 million this year. We only had 14. So there's going to be more, I don't like to say losers because I'm not suggesting they're losers, but what I'm saying is more folks are going to get denied than they are approved. And so we have to make those hard decisions about what to fund. Scoring a grant application is part of it, but having a balanced portfolio is another part of it. We want to make sure we have adequate treatment programs that are funded. We also want to make sure we have adequate prevention programs. We want to make sure it's spread out in Newcastle County, Kent County, and Sussex County. So if we have 15 prevention programs applying in Newcastle County, well, 2 of them might get funded, right? It doesn't mean the other 13 weren't good. That just means come back next year and keep trying. And sustainability, continue to show partnerships with other organizations who receive monies from other grantees as well. This is just a drop in the bucket, as Andrew said. We're talking about it like it's the end-all be-all. It's not going to solve this problem, right? But it's going to assist. That's it. But it's up to you, the organizations, to demonstrate community and collaboration to sustain yourselves. It's not my responsibility to sustain you. In fact, I got 12 years. The Opioid Commission has 12 years worth of monies. We're going to be here a lot longer than that, hopefully. So that's on you to come up with solutions to sustain yourselves. And I'm here at the table to help strategize with you. And that's all I can really offer.
To tell you how much we appreciate you being an understatement. I know we have some good conversations, you and I, amongst ourselves, like me and Andrew do. And me and Frank do, and all of us at this table. But what people don't see at home, they see stuff on social media, armchair quarterbacks and stuff. But what you don't see is most of the organizations that have been funded, they already work together. Like, whether you know it or not, whether they're on this team or that team, we all work together and we all serve together. So it was pretty powerful. And you did come to our dinner this year, and you felt that servanthood, that collective servanthood. You know? Andrew came, you know, and we support Fasar wholeheartedly, you know, because they make a lot of sense to us, because there's some crazy stuff that goes on in recovery houses without oversight. I mean, crazy.
I mean, it's important that we support each other. I mean, this is like not a me problem, this is a we problem. We all have to come together to find a solution to solve it.
Right, nobody's ever failed certification, but they quickly remove themselves from the process if they're not going to get it.
I'm being led to Pub the Walk for recovery. So it's basically, the website, Hans, isn't 100% complete, right? It's getting there. But if you go on there, you can learn about the walk, and this is setting up for years to come. It's basically where anyone in Delaware can go out and walk and tag us why they support recovery, why they support the foundation's primary purpose for a long-term, free residential post-treatment recovery center. For those that go into treatment centers, get abstinent, and would like to come down and learn a new way to live, and then go out in servitude living. And then servitude living centers will be partnerships like Fishermen and other recovery organizations that believe in servanthood. So that's our primary purpose, and we know that that is unequivocally missing in the treatment model and / recovery model in our state. It's all been eliminated. So when that is available, we'll see people graduating that do go back in and serve. So you're encouraged to check that out and walk. In May, we'll be meeting at Independence Mall on May 3rd. The space is reserved. It's the huge green space in front of Independence Hall, right? In Kent County. And it's a beautiful space, and we're partnered with Delaware Council on Gambling Problems on it. If you want to help, you can go on the website, check it out. It should be active before our Hoops for Help tournament at Chase Fieldhouse.
It'll be active by next week.
Okay, we got a commitment. It should be active, right? And Hans does a lot of awesome stuff behind the scenes. He got a creative gift. But without Hans, we would not have a lot of the capability we have programming-wise and creative design-wise. So we thank him too. He's awesome.
That's great.
And we start at Norwood.
Yeah, we're going to start. I mean, there'll be suggested times and routes to walk where you walk, be sensible. We're not shutting anything down. You can walk wherever you can walk and jog and play legally in the state. And all the direction, all the suggestions, all the routes are listed on there now. You can check it out. And all you need to donate is $1, because $1 per resident adds up to almost $1.2 million. That would be a lot of money to build and operate a 54-bed post-treatment residential recovery center in the state. I like the ring of that, And if you want to donate more than that per year, you want to donate the cost of your cup of coffee, $3. You did 2 other people's part for the state, $7. Yeah, you pay $7 for a cup of coffee. So you hear that? Yeah, we're on our way.
We got our first $7, everybody.
But we believe that everyone has to contribute and sew in. We believe the word free isn't always free. It's not free. Recovery isn't free once you get it. To keep it, you have to do what? You have to give it away. So we got to give back. We got to sew in for the next guy like it was sewed in for us. So does anybody have anything they want to say before we close?
Pray it out.
Pray it out.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate everybody for coming. Appreciate you guys for watching. Sorry we ran over. My wife is letting us know.
She's mad.
Yeah.
She's mad.
He's trying to start a fight.
You want to take us out? You want to?
Frank, Laura, just thank you for this time together. We thank you for just all that we've learned today, and just pray that you continue to guide us and give us wisdom on how best to help the sick and suffering that we come into contact with. We thank you for the healing that you've given to us. We pray that we can just give it away to others. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Great job, everybody.
I've had to pee for like an hour.
One bathroom, so.
That's how I stay awake when I'm driving. I'm pulling over and pee. It keeps me awake.
Is this your first?
Yeah. Thank you. I wasn't actually.
I know
Thanks, officer. I appreciate your help. Hey.
Figure out different streams that we have to come in person, but we can qualify. Zach said that was all right.